Hey, everybody, fresh off of RSAC 2026, we're diving into what's actually changing in identity security from sovereign deployments to AI-driven threats and so much more, and what it means for the enterprise trying to stay one step ahead. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing great, Evan. How are you? Did you enjoy the show?
Yes, it's very busy times, so still trying to catch up. Before that, maybe introduce yourself and your journey to RSA Security and what you're up to there these days.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, Jim Taylor, official title President, Chief Product and Strategy Officer for RSA Security. Horrendously long title. What it really means is I'm the techie. So, I've spent all of my life, all of my career, 25 plus years, I know I don't look it, in cyber, particularly focused around identity, privilege, a little bit of network and endpoint, but the vast majority, 89% of my life in cyber focused in the identity space. So worked for just about every company out there. I won't list them. You can go look them up, but always been on the product, the technical side. So my journey into RSA really began 4 and a bit years ago when RSA was acquired and exited Dell and became an independent company again. I like to say we reclaimed our own identity at that point. And really it was, my job as the chief cook in the kitchen was to return RSA to its roots of being an innovator and a pioneer. And luckily the world complied and was very helpful by ushering in a new technology frontier around the same time. So, lots of very cool and exciting and innovative stuff for us to do. And so, I'm a techie that works for, probably one of the best security brands in the industry who's known for innovating and pioneering. So I get to do what I love all day. And they pay me the fools.
Wow, what a wonderful introduction. Well, look, RSAC just wrapped. It's top of all our minds. What was your biggest takeaway or takeaways? What did you hear loud and clear from customers, from partners, others?
Yeah, I mean, other than the fact that it's no longer a cyber show and has become entirely an AI show, the elephant in the room. No, I think it was actually a really good show this year. It was very interesting. There was a lot of energy. Whenever there's a big shift or a big change in the technology and the dynamic, you tend to find, the water cooler, the bar room, the restaurant conversations are a lot more heated and animated. And so the world has dramatically changed over the last few years, and so has the threat landscape. The velocity of the change in technology, particularly with things like AI, but not just AI, is really impacting, cyber. I would say there was the biggest kind of cultural shift I saw was that the show is very much more security focused and security oriented than it was before. Maybe a strange thing to say because it's a security show, but it used to be a lot about convenience and implementation and those kinds of things. But I think the world has become quite a scary place, and RSA was really a buzz about, what to do about that. So good to see in some respects that it's being taken a lot more seriously and there's a lot more energy in the room than there used to be.
Indeed. And you had so many announcements. One in particular was the ID plus sovereign deployment announcement. What does that mean in practice? Deploy anywhere? Why is it so mission critical at the moment?
Yeah, I think that really lines up with my previous answer, right? I mean, the world has become a scary place and we're seeing new threats, new threat vectors. Just looking at what's been going on, in the Middle East a couple of weeks ago, critical infrastructure has been hit by missiles and shrapnel and, various hyperscaler cloud infrastructure has gone down, and that's affected real businesses like banks unable to operate, for example, right? I'm avoiding naming names because it's, something that could happen to any of us. We saw, over the last 12 months, critical infrastructure go down. I will name CrowdStrike, but the CrowdStrike event really made people kind of stop and think. And I think over time, over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, technology as an industry, we've been giving control to the SaaS vendors, to infrastructure as a service, to Azure, AWS, GCP, name your cloud of choice. Why? Because it's convenient to have them do some of the work. It's, cost effective to not have to buy and manage those server rooms. It's, easier for me to manage my stuff if I don't have to have so many IT staff on hand to manage my own data center. But I think what's happened is all of that has come into focus, and people have realized, hey, I'm giving up control. I'm giving up resiliency. I'm giving up having my destiny in my own hands. Essentially, I'm putting my destiny in somebody else's hands, and I'm crossing my fingers, and I'm really hoping that they do a really, really good job. So what our customers have been telling us, and we at RSA pride ourselves on securing the most secure. We live in the part of identity where failure is just not an option, right? If we go down, really, really bad stuff happens. So we've always taken that kind of view that minimal acceptable uptime for us is anything slightly north of 100%. That's the kind of world that we live in. So our customers have been saying, we need some of that control back. But what we don't want to do is sacrifice capability, which is the traditional model, right? If it's a SaaS company and they have an on-prem offering, it's a slightly degraded. You don't get quite all the good features and stuff. If it's an on-prem company and they move to cloud, it's really not quite the same. So our premise in working with our customers was, hey, we should be out of that conversation. It's not our job to dictate where or how you want to consume that technology. We should provide you the option, the same stack. If you consume our SaaS service, from us, we host and manage it. If you want to deploy it, you should get the same capabilities, right? So it really is kind of agnostic, deploy anywhere. We, of course, will give guidance, advice. We will consult as to the best models. But if you decide that the right thing for you is to consume that software in a deploy anywhere model on a submarine in an air-gap network in your own data center, if you want physical, server-to-server reliability and redundancy, if you want cloud to, whatever, the connotations, the matrix is never-ending, then we should provide you that choice. So it was really a conscious effort by us to remove ourselves from that conversation, Evan, and say, as a vendor, we should not be dictating how you consume and how you get value from our technology. We should give you that choice and ensure that however you consume it, you get the same value, you get the same benefit, you get the same capability.
Amazing. So identity-based attacks are evolving fast. I just had one today that was the most sophisticated I've ever seen, with a corporate website, a corporate email, professional sounding, fake social profiles, fake website. I mean, I almost fell for it. So, but what are the most advanced threats you're seeing beyond the traditional phishing so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit crazy. It's kind of scary and exciting all at the same time. And I need to qualify that, right? So it's exciting because the pace of technology, it's exponential. We are going faster and faster and faster. I have never seen the technology evolve at the speed that it is today. So that's, crazy good, but also crazy bad. And so what we generally see is, for the longest time, the login credential was the soft point, right? We all know humans are the problem. If we could just get rid of all of the humans, like, security would be easy. Apparently, I'm not allowed to do that. So, we have to live with them. But now it's moved beyond that, right? We introduced FIDO-based credentials, passkeys, things like that. We introduced strong, non-phishable or phishing-resistant credentials. So what does the bad guy do? If you put a really big lock on the front door, he goes around the back and breaks in the window that you forgot to leave open. So we're seeing incredible diversity in the attack. Some of the more advanced things are things like not targeting the login, but targeting the session. So session and token theft, right? OAuth is a compromise. If it's too difficult for me to compromise your FIDO, your phishing resistant token, then let me attack you that way. We're seeing things like help desk bypass, right? Social engineering, help desks. Look at every headline for the last 12 months. There's at least $1 billion in damages through help desk compromise, that in itself, right? We're seeing more advanced threats. So new one that's particularly interesting is the AITM, or adversary-in-the-middle attack, which is similar to the one that you described. So, I put up a really compelling, really convincing facade. You log into me with your credentials. I log into the real website, and I'm hijacking your credentials. So security working as designed, right? Without session controls, without, location-based, very, very difficult. So, I guess what I'm saying is we blocked the primary entry point pretty effectively with the login credential. So now cyber adversaries are surrounding the house and looking for every open window, every crack, everything to log in. We're seeing it become more and more sophisticated. With tools like AI, I don't have to be clever enough to mount a phishing campaign anymore. I can just tell AI to do it for me. It's getting pretty good at it. So a little bit scary.
Scary indeed. And the good news is most organizations aren't complacent anymore. But do you think many are still underestimating risk when it comes to identity as this new attack surface?
100%. It's identity is the number one attack surface. I mean, you can go read, look at your Verizon data breach surveys, look at your IBM survey, whatever survey of choice, right? Let's just, average them all out and say roughly 80% of all attacks are identity or credential based. So identity is the number one attack vector. How they're getting in, phishing, bypass, whatever, all of the different types of attacks, they're all different. But I think because it's moving so fast, organizations are dramatically underestimating or not keeping pace. Some may be aware of the problem, but they haven't, got a plan in place or technology in place to solve it. The reason I know that, unfortunately, Aaron, is because every time I wake up and I read the headlines, I see another major compromise, I see another major breach, and 8 out of 10 times it's identity-based. So unfortunately, the evidence, the data speaks for itself. On the bright side, I do see that as an industry, we're getting better at collaborating, we're getting better at adopting standards. FIDO was a great example of that. So there is light, there is positive, but right now it's definitely a very high threat, very high risk landscape. And every organization, I don't just build the products for RSA, I also look after the IT for RSA. So I'm a CIO and, have to have that role within RSA as well. And I'm very, very conscious of what we as a company are doing, right? What our controls are, what our protections are. It's challenging. It's a challenging time.
Indeed. And I see RSA Security is expanding its partnership with Microsoft. Talk about Microsoft's agentic vision and what does that unlock in terms of new opportunities and authentication?
Yeah, we really love our partnership with Microsoft, and it's very two-way. It's very bi-directional, which isn't always the case with one extremely large vendor and one that's 100 times smaller. But I would say we bring specialized skills to the party. They bring scale and breadth and resources, and they're Microsoft, right? So. For us, what we've really found is there's a 1 + 1 = 2 type relationship where Microsoft is really developing and doing a great job of introducing capabilities, particularly in their security stack, right? We see a lot more Entra, Sentinel, Purview, Defender. The Microsoft Security Suite is becoming really good, really, really strong. But they don't cover every use case. A good example would be in the partnership would be around passwordless. So we do passwordless on every machine across every operating system. Microsoft doesn't always necessarily do that, right? They don't cover Macs, they don't cover Chromebooks, et cetera, et cetera. That's where a partner like us can take that, core foundation of Microsoft security capabilities and expand it to whatever is in your enterprise. We also obviously have a legacy of 40-year history. We're 40 some odd years young, we deny our real age, but, we've been working on mainframes and Unix systems and legacy infrastructure. We've been working in network systems, all of those things that are outside of the traditional Microsoft ecosystem. We have connectors, we have agents, we have skills, we have knowledge, we have experience. So we're able to bring those specialist skills to Microsoft. Now, Microsoft is obviously, really pushing on the AI side, particularly the agentic side. We were a launch partner with Microsoft. And if you look at everything they've announced in the security space over the last 2 or 3 years, you'll see consistently RSA has been a launch partner with them. We were actually one of the first that built an agentic agent for RSA, feeding data into the Sentinel data lake and perusing all of the data in the Sentinel data lake, looking for threats. So that's using our specialist knowledge to enhance and expand the capabilities of the Microsoft ecosystem.
Wonderful. Of course, autonomous agents and agentic is the topic of the day. I've personally got, in my little business, 3 agents working as we speak in the background here. It really is game-changing for so many business. But what does that mean for security and securing these machine identities?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And I think it's been the wild, wild west for the last 12 months, right? Because this is a technology that's just moving so fast. So, what I would always say to people is just get the basic core principles in your head, right? So an agentic agent is just like a little mini worker that can go off and do stuff, right? And maybe it's, one in your environment that you created. Maybe it's one that's coming from outside, right? Every application, every time I look, there's another AI announcement from an application, and they now have their AI and their agentic agents and so on and so forth. So they're really just identities. And we really need to think of the world in 2 colors or 2 flavors. There are human identities and there are non-human identities. Now, when I break down non-human identities, there's, machine identities, there's service accounts, and of course, there's agentic agents. But the problem that we want to solve, and it's the same problem no matter what type of an identity is. We want to be able to inventory or catalog all of the agents. You say you have 3. That probably puts you ahead of most people in the world. And then how many agents are running around in your enterprise. Are there really 3, though? Can you be sure there's not, one of them didn't invite a friend over? You don't have a 4th one that you don't know about, right?
Well,
so inventory, catalog, right? That's critical. We have to know what we're trying to secure. And then we want to treat it like any other identity. We want to give it an identity. We want to authenticate it. We want to authorize it. We want to govern it, right? We want to provision it, deprovision it, give it entitlements. Yes, it's a thing. And yes, that thing has inherited permissions, usually from me or you, or maybe from an application, but it should have some boundaries. It should have some entitlements, things it's allowed to do, not allowed to do. It should be forced to prove it is who it says it is, right? It should be forced to authenticate. So that's how I always tell people to think about it, right? Just understand it's an identity, and the same core problems that you're trying to solve with any identity, you need to apply to agentic.
So well said. So let's talk passwordless. It's, such an exciting opportunity. Personally, I would love to see it, but it's kind of been next year's priority for a while for many organizations. What's holding some people back?
Okay, so I would say not anymore. I would say it was it was one of those problems that we had a little bit of failure to launch as an industry, right? Or passwords have been around forever. We all know they're bad, right? We've been talking about it for a very long time. I honestly, truly believe that the next couple of years, maybe 1 to 3 years, is when passwordless becomes real in the enterprise. Now the challenge is enterprises need to commit and they need to understand that passwordless is a journey. I wish we could provide them a big red button that they could just press and hey presto, we're passwordless. It doesn't work like that, but there's an awful lot of low-hanging fruit in the passwordless journey. There's a lot of capabilities with standards-based credentials, FIDOs, passkeys, things like that are enabling that journey. So usually the biggest barrier to an enterprise really achieving or beginning or progressing on their passwordless journey is really one of like not knowing where to start, right? It's like, how do I tackle this, right? And it's the same answer for how do I eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time, right? We always give the same advice. One, do an honest, open survey. Establish where you are. What's your baseline, right? How many passwords do you have? What technology are you using? What does this thing that we're trying to solve look like, right? Two, make a plan. Right? Have a strategy. Decide what's important. Is it really, really important to, protect the secret data store that has, the secret recipe to Coke in it? Or is it more important to protect, the vacation booking system, right? Companies know this stuff. They've been doing data classification. They know where their assets are. They know what the value of those assets are. So define a plan, right? And then get it started. Obviously, the goal is no passwords, passwordless. The clue is in the name. But removing passwords and fewer passwords is also reducing your risk. So it's not the solution, and you shouldn't go, hey, I got rid of 10% of all of our passwords. We're now passwordless. But you should take the credit for having 10% less of a risk surface. So it's a journey, and I think the biggest barrier for people is, where to start. And so I always say, speak to, an advisor, a vendor, speak to another customer, speak to some other company that's on this journey, right? Collaborate. We all do this together. Figure out where you are, make a plan, and start knocking them off. Once you get started, it gets pretty easy to accelerate that journey.
Brilliant. Well said. So if we were to fast forward to RSAC 2027 or RSAC 2028, where would you hope the vision of the industry would be for identity security? Any predictions you can offer or desires, best wishes?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really hard question because, the horizon is so much closer than it used to be. We used to think of long-term strategic planning or vision type stuff as being, 5 to 10 years out, right? Then maybe 3 to 5, right? Well, with the speed of change, with the way things are happening, particularly with AI technology today, I think long-term planning is 6 months, 12 months at a push. It really is moving that fast. So, where will we be in 12 months? We'll be in a dramatically different place. I think there'll be a lot more capability around AI and agentic. And I hope that we will have just either extended or added the capability to deal with all identities, right? No matter what. I hope that we will have dealt with things like the reliability, the resilience. There are some fairly weak and critical points of failure in the system today. If you kind of step back and look at it, one missile to the wrong data center takes down the financial infrastructure of a country. That's not a good position to be in. We need to be better than that. So I think you'll see a lot of that. But then I think, slightly less exciting, slightly closer to the ground. I am really, really honestly positively encouraged with the momentum in cyber and particularly identity over the last 5 years. As the problem has accelerated, so is our understanding. So is we became the center of the conversation. We're getting attention. We're getting resources. We're getting conversation. That's how you solve things, right? You don't solve a problem by ignoring it. You solve it by really focusing on it. So I'm super encouraged by that. So I think basic things like passwordless, I think there will be a blueprint for solving passwordless. I think identity governance or who has access to what, I think that will essentially be almost an AI-driven function and will be ubiquitous across enterprises. Not just the domain of the Fortune 1000, right? Because it's complicated. I see that technology coming to small to medium-sized enterprises as well.
Oh, wow.
So it's very encouraging. The solution is, I won't say always, but certainly on some days we're keeping pace with the problem. It's an arms race, but we're certainly not falling behind. So that is encouraging.
Well, on that very positive and optimistic note, which I love, thank you so much for sharing your insights, as always, so unique and timely, and look forward to keeping in touch as this evolves, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for everything that you do, Evan. It's always a pleasure to spend a little time with you. I love and enjoy our chats.
Thank you. And thanks, everyone, for listening, watching, sharing this episode. And be sure to check out our TV show, techimpact.tv, on Bloomberg Television and Fox Business. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Evan.